We are joined today by Roxanne Taku, co-founder of TechTalk and Reslink. She is also a TEDx speaker and currently on a mission to help 300k plus job seekers to get hired at tech companies. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, let's just dive right into the questions. Could you please tell us a bit more about yourself, share some insights into your background and your journey into becoming a co-founder of those great two companies?
Yes, of course. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's really great, and I think what you're doing at Frankenfitch is absolutely amazing in kind of spotlighting different careers, which I think is really needed. But yeah, so my name is Roxanne. I'm half French, half from Cameroon, but grew up most of my life in Cape Town, South Africa, and moved to the UK about 9 years ago to study. And yeah, ever since leaving university, I've been working in the tech industry, which I absolutely love. Super dynamic industry, very fast growing, and I love absolutely everything about this industry. I started in tech sales and then moved into business operations. And throughout my journey in tech, I've done a lot of pivots. I've worked in a lot of different types of companies, all the way from startup, scale up, and big tech. And yeah, today I'm the co-founders of TechTalk and Reslink. So TechTalk is a community that essentially helps people get jobs in the tech industry. And the way this started is that actually when I was working in tech and that I was speaking with people, telling them that I worked in tech, the second question that would come up is, oh, great. So like, what coding language do you work with? Just for context, I don't code. So yeah, I thought that was interesting that people always kind of thought that to work in tech, you need to have some sort of coding background or technical background. And so the original idea was actually to teach people about the non-coding side of tech, and to show them that there is, a path for you or like a space for you in the tech industry. But yeah, since then it kind of grew. So we founded it 2 years ago, and since then it's grew to helping both people in coding and non-coding roles in the tech industry. And then Reslink, which stands for Resume Link, is essentially like a SaaS platform, and it's a platform that allows you to put a video pitch on top of your resume or on top of your CV, which you can then send out to recruiters and hiring managers, allowing you to have that human connection with the hiring teams and kind of position yourself strongly for that role. So yeah, the idea behind both is kind of just creating more accessibility to the tech industry.
And with your career spanning across, yeah, as you said, go-to-market and sales, as well as the tech space, what would you say stands out as like the most defining moment in your career? One that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, that's a good question. To be honest, I think one of the most defining moments in my career was probably when I landed my second job, which was in a big tech company. So my first ever role was as a sales development representative, so basically the most entry-level role in a tech sales department, and it was for a fintech startup. And after doing that for a year and a half, 2 years, I had set myself the goal of working at a big tech company. Um, I don't really know why. I think, I was like, okay, I've got 2 years of experience now, like I really want a big logo on my CV. But to be honest, I was also very scared doing that because I didn't feel like I had the logos. I didn't feel like I had the experience. And I basically put this glass ceiling on top of my head that I don't actively think I realized that I had put. So there was a lot of like transformation that I had to kind of go through in order to break that glass ceiling. And that's when I kind of really pushed myself outside of my comfort zone for me to kind of land that role. So that really made, first I had to change my mindset. So I had to give myself, I had to believe that I deserved to be in this big tech company and that I deserved to land these types of interviews. But then there was a lot of learning as well that I had to do in terms of like how to build a strong CV, how to build a strong LinkedIn, most importantly, networking, so that I could get kind of referrals into these companies and so that I could understand how they worked. And yeah, I think that was a very defining moment for me because in the end, it took a couple of months, I'd say maybe like anywhere between like 8 months to a year. But I learned so much in terms of like my worth and the fact that actually I can land interviews and offers at these big tech companies. And I think me kind of going from a moment of like, oh, this would be a good thing to try and like whatever happens, happens, to actually landing those offers, kind of showed me that I can do whatever it takes as long as I have like the mindset, and as long as I just, execute on what needs to happen. So that was definitely a defining moment in my career, because I think it's, even now as I founded my business, I'm able to remind myself of like, I went through that time where I thought I landed something that I originally thought I didn't really deserve, or that was unattainable. And yeah, that's definitely been like something that's helped me, like even during hard times. I'm like, I've done it before, so I can do it again.
Okay, that's really interesting because I think that's a barrier to a lot of careers, right? That mindset shift to I can actually do it, and like having that self-confidence in that. What would you say helped you get to that point?
Honestly, I think like essentially every small win helped me get to that point. Like at the beginning, it felt very big and a bit far out of reach. But then when you
Mhm.
start breaking it down, like step by step, and like achieving one thing at a time, and realizing that you're closely getting there, just made it easier. So I think even now, if I think of like a very big goal that I want to achieve in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years time, I try not to focus so much on the big goal, but I think, okay, now how do I reverse engineer this to something that I can take action now? Because otherwise it's like very big, and you almost feel paralyzed because you think, oh, this is too big. Like, I don't even know how to get started. But just by taking, even if it's just like an hour or two to genuinely think about how you're going to get there, then you focus more on that initial small goal first. It makes it a lot more attainable. So, for example, for me, first the big thing that I kind of had to think about was, okay, what is the role that I want to go for, but then how do I build my CV that's well positioned for that. And then that was the first goal, and then I learned, okay, how do I build the CV, what it is that I need to be sharing. I also think your network as well, like reaching out to people, so whether that's building your network or who you have around you, helps a lot. Because if you're like in your head, something feels very overwhelming, as long as you have people that support you and that can, kind of encourage you along the way, it kind of, even during moments when you're down, you kind of keep going. So I would definitely think like taking the big goal, reverse engineering it into smaller goals, so that you can kind of work towards it, but then also being surrounded by people that believe in you and that support you and that kind of remind you like why you set that goal in the first place and why you should keep going for it.
Yeah, it's always good to have that support system.
Mhm.
Taking from your own experience and maybe your experience with Tech Talk, for example, what would you say are some of the challenges that job seekers from diverse backgrounds are facing in today's tech job market?
Yeah, I think a big one is kind of lack of confidence. And I mean, it makes sense why, right? Like, I think one of the big reasons is because they don't see as many people that look like them in the type of spaces that they want to be in, which is why, I really like what you guys are doing, with the tech spotlight, because I think it kind of goes a level deeper, and it allows people to kind of share their stories, and it makes you realize that there is a space for you. So I think definitely, like, kind of similar to my story, where I had put this glass ceiling on top of my head without even necessarily realizing it, because at the beginning, I thought like, oh, I could work at a big tech company, but probably only like 10 years down the line, once I've like achieved something bigger. And then it was just somebody that told me like, why do you wait? Like, why don't you just give it a try now? So I think definitely like lack of confidence, like putting our own like glass ceilings on top of their head, or our heads, or feeling like this isn't a place for us yet, is definitely one thing. I think also going back to like the support network, not necessarily feeling like you have somebody that you can speak with about it, or feeling that the people that do speak with you about it maybe don't have like similar stories. So, when they're like, oh, just reach out to a friend that works at that company, is like, well, I don't have friends that work at that company. So how am I supposed to get a referral if I don't know anybody there? So I think, yeah, definitely like lack of confidence is one thing that I see, just because of them not being able to see other people like them in that space. But then also maybe not having like the support network, that they need, I think is the other thing. But I would say lack of confidence is probably the bigger one, because your support network is, you can always build that, or you can try put yourself around people that can that support you versus then take away from you.
And throughout your career in like your own, in the tech space, in sales, and with TechTalk and Reslink, have you seen any kind of D&I improvements, any initiatives that have worked really well that you think, were successful, or
Yeah,
anything like that?
I think companies are a lot more conscious about this now, and like they're taking more proactive action, which is good. Like even something as small as having conversations about what it's like being, a minority or a person of color within a company. Like I think opening up that conversation is really important. So for example, one of the ways that I felt more confident going for this was because I attended a lot of panels, or listen to a lot of content where I would go out and find content where somebody that looked like me was talking about their career path. And so I see more and more companies, doing events for minority groups, for women, just to like open up that conversation. So I think there's definitely been some changes, especially since the events of George Floyd, and I think that that's turning like a negative into a positive, which I think is good. But there's definitely still a long way to go, and like we need to make sure that we still continue having these conversations, so that whether it's somebody who is just starting in their career or somebody who's already in their career but needs like a little bit of a lift up, like they still have like this type of content resources that they can go to.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. There's still a very long way to go before we get to the right place, I would say. You've basically just shared your key learnings from those stories, I'd say. Outside of maybe limiting beliefs, have you come across any other barriers to success yourself?
Mm, let me think about this one. Because I do think a lot of the times, like the biggest barriers are, I mean, there's obviously the systematic barriers, like I think we can't pretend like these don't exist.
Yeah.
But I think like the way to think about it is that they're also not going to change overnight. So it's either you choose to obviously recognize these systems, still have conversations about these systems because that's how they improve for, yourself 10 years down the line or even the generations after you. But if you're looking for like a certain action or like a certain outcome to happen tomorrow, then it needs to come more from like within you and realizing that like you have control of your own destiny, and like no matter how many systematic barriers or systemic barriers there are, like you can break every single one of them. And there's definitely like a truth in terms of it's mentally draining, it's physically draining, right? Like I've always worked at companies where I'm the only woman of color or one of the few women of color. And I think at the beginning, I used to actually spend a lot of energy and time thinking about that, and yeah, making myself small because of that. But I think again, because of going through these panels and seeing other successful people of color, women of color being where they are, like them kind of talking about their journey and how their mindset shifted and thinking like, you know what, actually you being the one of few is a positive, right? Because it means that you stand out. Like so many people at companies, they want to be seen, they want to be visible, they want to get the attention that they think that they deserve, like they want the spotlight, and like you naturally have like a little bit of that spotlight because you're the one of few. And I think almost seeing that as like an opportunity rather than something to shy away from, because realistically, because you're the one of few, you're going to be seen anyways. So why not use that as like a way to propel you, and really kind of sit in that and like lean forward in it, rather than trying to kind of hide away from it. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there were times where I was underestimated, probably as a woman, because I didn't look like everyone else, because I didn't speak like everyone else. But I actually found that the times where like more positive things were drawn to me was when I chose to just own it. I owned it. There wasn't anything that I was trying to shy away from. And it also just made me more confident as a professional. And I think people really actually valued that. Like they valued that I was comfortable speaking up, that I was comfortable doing that while still being myself and not trying to like assimilate to how other people are speaking. And if anything, I actually managed to use that as a superpower, rather than, yeah, running away from it. So yeah, there's definitely the systemic barriers. I think that that's, as we talked about, there's still a long way to go to remove those. But I think, you know, as long as you choose to think about it in an opportunistic way, which sounds weird to say, but as long as you choose to think about it in an opportunistic way and say, okay, me being one of you is actually, I can turn this into a positive rather than dwelling on the negatives of it, you can make more things happen for you that way.
I agree. Okay. How do you think can we encourage more women, especially women from minority backgrounds, to get into the tech industry?
Yeah, I think getting us together is nice. So basically, you know, getting us in a room or getting us at events or getting us in communities where you can speak with other women that have the same, you know, kind of experiences. It's nice because one, you realize that you're not the only one in the space. It's easy to feel isolated, a lot of the times, especially when you're the only one in your team, in your company, or things like that, because it's easy to believe that, like, you know, because you're spending so much time at work, it's easy to believe that your team, your company is kind of how everything is, and you're like, oh, I'm the only one in this entire industry. But by putting yourself out there and joining community groups where you get to speak with other people that have the same experiences, I think that's when you, from hearing their experiences and how they've dealt with things, it helps you figure out like how you can use their learnings for yourself as well. I think definitely starting early. So basically, you know, having more initiatives even at schools, at universities, in apprenticeship programs, where they're more exposed to kind of people from different groups. So I think, you know, a lot of the times, like, we only start figuring out once we're in the world of work, like what the reality really is. And I think if there was a little bit more initiative, more earlier on in the process, like in educational systems, things like that, then we would be able to kind of encourage more minority groups to kind of see the opportunities that exist in tech and like how you need to kind of be navigating your career in tech. Mentorship is another one, you know, kind of, and this is whether it's already an existing mentorship program or, you know, one that you go out and seek. Like you know, I think it's great to be, whether it's seeking mentorship from people that look like you or people that at least understand the experience. So it can also just be like an ally, right? Like, I think that's really important to recognize allies and recognize like what an ally can do for you as well. I think that's important. And yeah, I think just not keeping it all in, like being able to let it out, again, with like a support network, whether it's one that you already have or whether it's one that you go and build for yourself. You just realize that the people you surround yourself with will make or break like your career, whether that's at work, whether that's outside of work. And so really being conscious about who it is that you surround yourself with, so that when there are moments of doubts, when there are moments that you don't know how to handle a certain situation, such as how to handle maybe a microaggression or something in somebody in your team, something like that, like, you know how to handle it in a way that's, you know, going to give you the outcome that you want. So yeah, I think that there's a lot, but I think in terms of summary, it would be definitely start earlier on in terms of like the institutions, so that people are aware of like the different types of careers in tech and they can see that there's a place for them there. I think building your surroundings or network, so that you feel kind of comfortable, and then wherever you can, go for like mentorship, whether that's with an ally or somebody else from your group.
I really like the start early point, because I think that is really valuable, because that's, for example, something me growing up, there was always kind of that understanding of you're either good at math or you're good at languages
Yeah.
back home. And it couldn't be both, or, girls weren't necessarily encouraged to go down the technical route a bit more.
Mhm.
But do you think the responsibility there lies with schools or maybe even with organizations to like get involved in that?
I think both, to be honest. Like, I think if they can see, like, if, like, it would be great to have partnerships, right, between these schools and organizations. And if these schools can see that there are organizations that are actually spending their time showing that, they're open, and that it's a comfortable space for like all types of people from different groups, and that there is ability to thrive, and that they're consciously very aware of this, I think that it makes it even more comfortable, right? Because I mean, not every company is going to have a different level of involvement and effort in trying in pushing like the DEI agenda. But I think if you can already pinpoint like the types of companies, the types of people, then I think that would be great. I do think more companies as well just need to, whether it's like conversation or actively like structured training related to, how to manage people from minority groups, I think is really important. Like, I remember I was having a conversation with a consultant who was working at a big consulting firm, and they had done a study on essentially how they had done a study on like promotion tracks. And one of the studies that they had found was that essentially people from non-minority groups were being promoted faster than people from minority groups, even though their level of work, results, and achievements were exactly the same. And so the main difference that they found was that actually people from minority groups, just because of our culture, whether that's Asian, African, things like that, like we are taught not to talk about our achievements. So it's not really something that, we're kind of taught, put your head down, work, and then if you work hard enough, your achievements or your work will be recognized. Whereas, I guess like more like majority cultures, like they're more taught to like boast about themselves and like talk about the things that they do well. Whereas in minority groups, it's kind of like just the expectation. It's not you're not meant to be, you're not meant to, yeah, boast about yourself. And so what they found was that managers, it meant that when the promotion review cycles were happening, managers were all to their managers were always talking about the groups of people that were talking about their achievements to them. And so this is why people from majority groups were being promoted faster or more often than people from minority groups, even though the actual output and outcome was the same. And so this is something that, it makes sense, right? For me as somebody from a minority group, I'm like, yeah, that's so true. Like I've always been told, like, don't boast about your achievements, just focus on your work. And then if you work hard enough, it's going to be seen. But it's only by reading through this report, or like actually yeah, like again going to panels and hearing people say like, actually you need to talk about your achievements, that's how you progress faster. Then you realize that, okay, this is how I need to kind of adapt, so that this system, basically like this is how the system works, and this is how I need to adapt, so that I make those system work in my favor. And it also meant that that consulting firm was then able to share this insights with their managers, so that it then meant like, okay, managers, like this is something that you should be aware of. How about you ask your employees more, or like your direct reports more, what is something that they've achieved, and get that information out of them, or like encourage them more to speak about it, rather than just letting, the people that more naturally speak about it, and the people that don't naturally speak about it keep it quiet. So I think there's that point as well, like making sure that organizations do actually educate themselves on this, and then think about like, okay, how can we then educate our managers so that they are aware of this, and potentially like change some of their habits or change their ways of working to make it more like equitable across everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like knowing that there is an issue is of
Yeah.
the first step, right? Because people, it's whether it's unconscious or whatever we want to call it, but people just often don't see the issues until someone actually points it out. So going back, I mean, you told us a bit about TechTalk and Reslink. Could you please give us more of an insight into the organizations and, yeah, their mission and activities?
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, Tech Talk, I mean, we're a community where we help people get jobs in the tech industry. So whether that's coding or non-coding. We're both female founders, Black founder, and then my other co-founder, she's from Brazil. So naturally, we actually attract a lot of people from underrepresented groups that we help kind of get jobs in the tech industry. So we founded this about 2 years ago, and since the beginning of 2024, we've helped over 300 people get jobs in tech, which is something that I'm really, really proud of. And yeah, like one of the big focuses that we've have kind of moving forward is just making that number of people that we've helped get jobs in the tech industry bigger and bigger. So we help in a couple of ways. So far, it's been very like educational content. So kind of teaching people like, this is how the tech industry works. These are the types of roles that exist. If you've got this types of skills, or if you're looking into this kind of pathway, this is what you should consider. And then like, these are the steps that you need to get there in terms of CV, LinkedIn, all of these kind of things. And then a couple of months ago, so this was maybe like 5 months ago, we built this community platform because it was very much like broadcasting, like us teaching them. But then we wanted to build this community where we actually get people learning from each other, helping each other out, networking with each other, giving each other referrals, and kind of just feeling that they're not alone as part of that journey. And next year and beyond, what we're looking to do more is actually partner with more companies, recruitment agencies, just essentially bridging the gap between that talent and companies that are actively looking to hire. And then Reslink actually came as off building TechTalk, because we noticed that whenever the job market's changed a lot, and the way that companies hire has changed a lot as well. And one of the biggest pains or challenges that we kept hearing from members from our community is that they feel like they're just sending out applications in the void. So they're sending out CVs, they're either getting ghosted or they're getting automated rejections, and they just feel like they're not being seen, and that essentially this job market is a massive fight for visibility, and that they just feel like they're not even given the chance to start with, because they're being measured or evaluated based on bullet points on a CV rather than like their true potential. And especially now with AI, it's very easy to write a CV with ChatGPT and a bunch of AI tools there, but there's also a lot of AI tools that will just like mass apply on your behalf. And so it kind of makes sense why companies, they're getting too many CVs, they're feeling very overwhelmed, and so it makes sense that there's so many rejections happening, because if you have one role that you fill, yes, before there was 300 applications, but now there's 1,000, so naturally there's going to be more rejections that happen. But off of this pain of not feeling visible, a lot of the feedback that we were getting is like, if only they could have that first conversation with me, they would realize my potential, and they would realize what it is that I can bring to the table. And so that's why Reslink was created, so that essentially users or job seekers can add a 60 to 90-second video pitch on top of their CV, which they then send that to the specific hiring team. So let's say that they're applying for a role at Google, like they will specifically explain like why they're a good fit for that role at Google. And there's two ways that they can share that. It's either through a link that they can send directly to a recruiter and hiring manager, whether that's on LinkedIn, email, etc., or it's that they can download it as a PDF. And they can basically add a button on their CV, which means that when they send that to the normal applicant route, as long as somebody kind of sees through that, they'll be able to click on it and get to see the person behind the CV. So that's why it's creating that human connection again, because a lot of the feedback that they're getting is that, yeah, like this feels a bit dehumanized. We just feel like bots are choosing whether, we get seen by the recruiter or not. And so Reslink is aiming to help that and bring the human connection again in hiring.
That's one step that recruiters often help with, right? We're like, that's one of our selling points, really. We're like, well, you're not just ending in a pile of applications, you're actually being introduced to the person at the other end hiring, because your recruiter can obviously advocate for you.
Yeah. Exactly.
A bit more as well. Well, it sounds like great initiatives. How do you think diversity and inclusion can drive innovation and business growth?
Yeah, I think it's key. I think there's a lot of statistics, right, that even show that companies with diverse workforces actually get better results in terms of revenue, or even in terms of customer satisfaction. I think like a big way to think about it is like, the more diverse your workforce is, actually the more people you can reach. So, you know, like, let's say we're building like a consumer product. Well, if you have people from a diverse background actually building that consumer product, then they're going to make that consumer product fit for people from their background as well. Like, I think one of the examples is like, you know, like the iPhone. Whereas before, the way that it was built, like if you took pictures, it didn't always look that great for people with dark complexion. And so they maybe didn't prefer buying the iPhone, but they preferred buying another phone, which they felt like just looked better on them when they were taking pictures. But then by having diverse people in the teams that were helping build the cameras for these iPhones, then they were able to build an iPhone that actually is suitable for like all types of skin complexions versus only like the fairer complexions. And I think that goes, you know, that's just one example, but it really goes across the board. So if you have a diverse team and you're looking to tap into like a certain type of a market where, you know, there's a specific group that tends to use that market, or you having that diversity of thought or like people that think different ways around the table means that you can actually really widen the type of businesses or even consumers that you're able to reach and tap into. And there's also that thing of, you know, resonating more with the brand. Like, you know, it's simple, but one of the main, even though there's still a long way to go, like one of the main reasons I decided to join the tech industry versus like a professional services industry, for example, was that I was able to see more people like me in the tech industry than I could in professional services. Like if you think about professional services, I think usually there's a very specific type of persona that you kind of picture in terms of like suit and like the way that they look. And like even though it was maybe just, even though it's still, there's still a long way to go in tech, like I could see more women in leadership in tech. And even if it maybe wasn't women of color, I could see more women and I could see more younger people as well. And so already those two factors where I was like, okay, there's more women and there's more younger people in senior position, that already makes me more drawn to that industry than maybe, you know, professional services industry where it's more male dominated and like older as well. So it felt more like a further away reach. So yeah, definitely having diversity in your team is key. And it just allows you to actually reach more people and reach more people with positive satisfaction.
Again, it's that awareness piece, right? If you don't bring a diverse group of people to the table, then you're not going to know about all the little well, potential issues with your product in the end, right?
Exactly.
Because obviously different people, different viewpoints.
Exactly, 100%.
Okay, well, we have 2 more questions. If you could have a one-to-one mentoring session with any tech or non-tech leader, past or present, who would it be and what would you ask them?
That's a good question. There's a lot of great people out there that I would want to have conversations with. I mean, I'm sure you get this answer a lot, but I'm gonna say Michelle Obama, just because I think that she's really just impressive, like in terms of like the way she communicates. I think she has like incredible, you know, high emotional intelligence, and the she can talk about anything, whether it's something like very complex or whether it's something light, but like still like she's able to really capture like a whole room's attention. And I think she's able to communicate very well, like what it's like being a woman in, you know, a place where it's not, well, even a Black woman in a place that is not meant for her, or like where there's not a lot of people like her, and not just the other people of color will relate and understand what she's saying, but I think she's able to really speak to the masses about those types of topics, and she's just very relatable, which I think is another thing. Actually, like relatability is really important, because when you feel relatable to someone, that's when you feel like you can do the same things that they're doing, which is why the part about visibility is so important. But yeah, like she still managed to, you know, be herself. She's not changed who she is, even during, you know, even after having been in the White House or during her time in the White House. And again, seeing that, like seeing a woman that's still herself, even when she's in the White House and in this position of a lot of power and a lot of eyes on her, like I think it encourages other people to like also be themselves as, you know, they're kind of going up the ladder or, you know, figuring things out. So yeah, Michelle Obama is definitely, I love love to be her. I feel like I'd ask her so many questions. She'd probably be tired of me by the end of it.
What would be one of the main questions you would ask her?
I think I would ask her just, I think still, I mean, it's a very running theme for me, but the point of mindset, just like how do you, in a moment where you have doubt or in a moment where you can clearly see somebody's doubting you, and, you're being dismissed or, especially in a moment where you have so much public light, like people aren't just dismissing you, but they're actively telling you that you shouldn't be here, that you can't do it, or like, you're not fit. Like, what are your habits or what are your mechanisms that just allows you to keep pushing through? Even if there's like, if it's something that, I don't know, like in that moment, what do you tell yourself that makes you snap out of it and, reminds you that you are worth being here and that, you're going to keep going and like attaining everything that you want to attain. So I definitely think like, yeah, like what are your things that work for you? So that whatever works for her, hopefully I can also take it on and work for me as well. So I would definitely ask her that. Yeah, I think that would be probably the main thing that I would ask her.
Good question. I think she'd have a really good answer to it.
Yeah, I mean, she must. I mean, she's been exposed to so much, so I can only imagine that whatever she's doing is working.
Wow. And final question, what would be your best piece of advice for a young woman who would like to start a career in IT or tech spaces? Yeah,
Mhm.
what would you tell them?
I think the first thing is don't disqualify yourself early. So don't, like basically don't put a glass ceiling on top of yourself. And if you do have a glass ceiling, that's fine. Be aware of it and just push through it, or try break that glass ceiling, however long it takes. And in terms of like very practical advice on how to do that, I would think it would be like put yourself out there, like go and have conversations with people, like reach out to people that you can have these conversations with. So whether it's like reaching out to people at companies that you're really excited about or want to learn about, or like when I was networking, to be honest, like I was just reaching out to a lot of other people from minority groups because I noticed that they would be more likely to respond to me and want to have a conversation when they can see that somebody's trying to pave their own path. And so you would be very surprised. At the beginning, my mindset was nobody's going to want to speak with me. Like I'm a complete stranger. I'm very new in my career. Like, why would they want, like, what is it that they can gain from this? But to my surprise, people are actually very, very forthcoming. And, and some of the things they would literally tell me on calls was like, oh, well, actually, when I was looking to pave my own path, like the reason I was able to get here is because people took their time and spoke with me and like I just want to pay it forward now. And so you'd be surprised by the amount of people that genuinely want to help, and when they see somebody that's just proactive and wants to get there, they will spend their time helping you get there. So I think like don't be afraid to put yourself out there, whether it's joining community groups or whether it's just like going out and meeting individual or trying to speak with individual people that you can just learn something from. I think is massive. And then again, by having those conversations, you start building your confidence because one, you'll actually, when you start doing the research and realizing that there are people that look like you out there, and that you start speaking with them, like it's kind of almost becomes like a snowball effect. Like they'll then introduce you to other people. You start having conversations about some of the initiatives at this company, why it is that they feel comfortable in this company, why they think it's like a company where they're able to thrive. And yeah, you feel a lot less isolated. So I would say, yeah, don't disqualify yourself too early. And if you do have these limiting beliefs, that's completely fine. Like it's not abnormal. Just be aware of them and start figuring out what actions you need to take to remove these limiting beliefs. And then the second thing is just put yourself out there, because the more you expose yourself to things, the more you realize you can actually do more than what I think you originally anticipated.
Right. I think, don't need to add anything to that. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Thank you again for joining us for the Tech Talent Spotlight.